Hello and welcome back to my MMA channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a recent Instagram post on the One Championship account asking fans what do they want to see the most in 2023. I'll have a look through the replies, give you my thoughts, and then see if there's any that I think might have been missed out. Before we get into the actual video, please make sure to subscribe if you want to see more One Championship content from me. Leave a like, all that good stuff. You can follow my Twitter as well to keep up to date with everything I'm doing. But let's have a look at this Instagram post. So, One Championship posted it a day ago at the time of recording, saying who's on your radar for the rest of 2023. I actually wrote an article about this earlier, and I think there's a decent amount of fights that people would mention on the One Fight Night 10 card coming up. Maybe not fights, but definitely competitors they want to see back in there soon. I mean, Demetrius Johnson versus Adriano Moraes 3 would definitely be, if you asked me at the start of the year, like, what's the top 10 fights I want to see this year in One Championship, that would be really high up there. But then we all kind of knew that was going to happen, I suppose. Yeah. I think we've already had some as well, like Andrade versus Lineker 2, I think would probably have been on my top 10 list. Alazov versus Superbon. Rodtang versus Superlek, but we obviously didn't get that in the end. Same as Malakin versus Arjun Bula. What do we just get? Nongo versus Haggerty. Yeah, that would have been on there. What a performance by Jonathan Haggerty. You can check out my video on that, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but yeah, wow. Okay, so the top comment with 119 likes is from One Championship CEO Chatri Sityatong, who said Rodtang versus Superlek, which was supposed to be the main event for One Fight Night 8, but obviously we ended up getting Superlek versus Daniel Williams because Rodtang pulled out. That was a big gutting, and then obviously Rodtang is back at One Fight Night 10 taking on Tavares. Is it Tabarez? Tavares? The Mexican guy. In the co-main event. So I think it's a co-main event, or is Musumeci the co-main event? I could be wrong, sorry. But yeah, I would like to see Rodtang and Superlek run it back. I'm sure we'll get a bit further down and there'll be some people mentioning those two in other fights, but I think Rodtang versus Superlek is the fight to make, and I think you could probably do it in Muay Thai or kickboxing. I think it makes more sense for Rodtang to challenge for the kickboxing title because of how many times he's defended the Muay Thai title at this point in time, obviously defending it again in a few weeks. But I can understand why Superlek would be not as big of a fan of that after he had to fight somebody else because Rodtang pulled out last time. So, but I do think that is the fight to make for Rodtang, is the Superlek one. And then, hey, look, do both. Do Muay Thai and then do kickboxing after that. I think that works. Obviously, you have to be cautious about the open weight Grand Prix, because if either of those guys are going to be in that, then that factors into it. But hey, maybe that could be a matchup in the Grand Prix. Chatri also said Haggerty versus Harrison. This is one that I definitely want to see. If I was doing a top 10 list for the rest of the year, this would be right up there, especially if they get to do it in the UK. I don't think it will happen. I'm just being honest, but I would love to see it. It seems like it's quite likely to happen, like the fight itself. I mean, Harrison obviously mentioned it right after the fight and said, Haggerty, go fight Felipe Lobo or whoever and let me get a fight back and then we'll do it. And I mean, come on, like everyone wants to see that. It'd be great. Let's have a look further down. A couple of answers that don't really need to be addressed. Dylan Stevens, Alazov versus Tawanchai. That is a hell of a fight. We've just had Superbon announce his comeback, haven't we? For the, is it One Fight Night 9 that he's not 9, sorry, 11 that he's back at. Oh yeah, against Typhon Ozcan, who did Ozcan fight last? It was Gregorian, but that was quite a while ago. Well, not ages ago, but October last year. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for Alazov, honestly. It's here's my one point that I'm like, about it is you have a champion versus champion matchup when both guys have only recently won their titles. Tawanchai has defended it once. Yeah, the Yusupov won last time out, One Fight Night 7. And obviously Alazov only won it a few weeks before that in January at One Fight Night 6. So I feel like you could build to that for a little bit longer. I thought that they would do Alazov versus Superbon, to be honest, like in a rematch. But I'm kind of glad they didn't. I think that's the best move for both of those guys. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun matchup. But I feel like it would be better maybe a little bit further down the line. Sore Eyelids says Rodtang versus Haggerty 3. As I already said, I think the Superlek one is the one to do. Purely because I don't think Rodtang versus Haggerty 3 is going anywhere. Haggerty, there's some interesting options now that he is the champion. Like I said, Felipe Lobo, Liam Harrison, potentially a Nongo rematch. And there's other things out there for Rodtang, I think. I think that you could do Rodtang versus Haggerty 3 at any point. And I feel like whilst there are interesting matchups for both those guys away from their trilogy, OBS did the thing where it makes my audio go weird, so I don't know where it cut off. But yeah, I think that there's better matchups out there for both guys. And when you can do the trilogy at any point, you might as well save it in that case. I don't know how to say that person's name, but they have asked for Superbon, and they have got Superbon. Eduardo776, Arjan to finally defend his title because it's been too long. Preach. Superboy _ 8blade. Superbon versus Alazov 2. Spoke about that. And Nongo versus Haggerty 2. Nongo versus Haggerty 2. Again, to go back to what I said about Superbon and Alazov doing a rematch. I think that you can definitely do Haggerty versus Nongo 2, but I think it makes more sense if you give Nongo some time to rebuild. Not rebuild, but take some time off and have another fight or two and let Haggerty fight some fresh contenders whilst he has the title. The Harrison one. I just want to see the Harrison fight. I'm just being honest. Haggerty versus Harrison. Yeah, preach. Super Sun versus Petrosian. Superbon versus Petrosian 2, I believe, is what he means. And we already have a fight for Superbon, but that sounds very good to me. Superlek versus Rodtang, yep. Haggerty versus Harrison, yep. Chingasalasov versus Murat Gregorian. That might be next. Have they announced Alazov's next fight? I don't know if that was part of the One Fight Night 11 announcement, but I don't remember it being. It doesn't have it listed there. What about on Tapology? No, nothing listed. I don't think Alazov's been announced for anything as of yet, so I think Alazov versus Gregorian makes a hell of a lot of sense. Superbon versus Tawanchai, that would be very, very good, but we have already discussed them. Anything else? Ilya Freemanov versus Tan Lee. I like that. Region Ursao and Chingas. Yep. In for that. Angela Lee versus Hamseo Hee. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Angela Lee at the moment, so that's why I haven't mentioned her yet. We just don't know when she's going to be back. So that's kind of... It's hard to predict what happens with that. I can see maybe an interim title being how that works out. Have one championship ever done an interim title? Yeah, of course they have. Yeah, Malakin. Jared Brooks versus Gustavo Ballart. Yeah, like that. Fabricio versus Stephen Lohman. I wouldn't say that's one of the fights that I most want to see this year, but it is a fight that has to happen. It'd be a good fight. So yeah, that makes sense. Christian Lee versus Murad Ramazanov. I don't really agree with that. Murad. When was that last Murad fight? It was One Fight Night 5 in December. It was a no contest against Roberto Soldic. So I don't think I don't think he deserves a title shot off of that, personally. Tankai versus Shamil Gasanov. Yep, I did see someone ask for Tankai versus Tan Lee in a rematch, which I don't know if we need to see right away, personally. Is there anything else? Twanchai versus Haggerty. Wouldn't be mad at it, but again, I feel like that's one that's better saved for in a few months, and I guess we'll leave that there. Let me think of if there's any off the top of my head that people haven't mentioned. Like, I feel it says, what do you want to see most in 2023? So I'm going to go big. Demetrius Johnson versus Fabricio Andrade. Demetrius seems to be talking like this might be his last fight against Moraes. If not, probably his last year. I think that if he beats Moraes and doesn't retire, there's not a whole lot left that I would want to see him do in one championship. Jared Brooks would be quite fun, but I don't think he could make strawweight. He could make bantamweight though, and I think that would be a lot of fun. That would be good. The winner of Soldic versus Kadastan versus Christian Lee, I think that's the better matchup than Murad Ramazanov. I know that Murad probably more deserving because of his win streak. I say that Kadastan's on a really good win streak. But if Soldic beats him, they've got to pull the trigger on Soldic versus Christian Lee, I think. Is there anything else? I think that's about it. I think that those are the two that jump into my mind, at least. Yeah, I think we'll leave that there. Guys, let me know in the comments if there's any that I missed that you guys really want to see this year in 2023 from One Championship. As I mentioned in the previous video, I will be doing a One Fight Night 10 preview when that gets a little bit closer, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you then.